that was a remarkable. Okay, I don't know where he gets the energy because I don't have it. I don't have that energy that he has. That was a remarkable. That guy I've never seen a ball of energy like that in my life. People say I have a lot of energy. I remember I blew Matt Taibbi's brain when I went and did his show the first time because I talk like that. He said I was able to stay angry for an hour straight. But anyway, that was crazy. That was a crazy energy. But that was what? Wow. So I don't know what's going on with the UFO, other dimension. I know there's certainly other dimensions of consciousness. I know that the one we're living in, I know like from my own experience, when I take a small dose of mushrooms and I close my eyes, that whatever that is seems more real than when I open my eyes. And so I know, and I've heard all the people talk about DMT and ayahuasca, and Ram Dass talked about that there was at least 5 levels of consciousness, and that you could travel through them, and that his guru could travel through dimensions of consciousness effortlessly.
Even Sam Harris acknowledges it.
Does he?
Yeah, he trips and stuff, and he does atheist meditation.
So, Alex Jones, when I watched the Alex Jones interview with Tucker Carlson, that's the first time that I've really, to be honest, I didn't even know about Alex Jones because there's a woman in England called Alex Jones who presents for the BBC, and I don't even think that she was, when I started the campaign, she wasn't even around. She only came onto the scene after I even started this campaign, which is sort of times past now. So, and I didn't even really pay much attention to her, but she's like one of these major TV presenters. I don't even really... Alex Jones, the American, I hadn't even heard of him at all. And so, apparently he'd been banned from a load of places. And so this Tucker Carlson interview with him, when he's getting reinstated on Twitter, I'm like, all right, I'll actually listen to this guy and see what he's all about. Now, that particular interview with Alex Jones, it actually blew my mind, and I thought, wow, this guy actually really knows what he's talking about. He was onto the whole Vanguard issues, all the corruption issues, all of the other major issues. Really, he pretty much seemed to be in line with everything that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. stands for. But then I actually got to watch my second interview with Alex Jones, and then the kind of dream was shattered, really, in a way, because he started getting onto the subject of, well, he went through a lot of subjects in one talk. He says that he's like a stream of consciousness, but he was covering so many topics, and he wasn't really very specific or coherent about them. But when he got onto some of the topics to do with, things like UFOs and, tripping and so forth, he does come out with some bollocks. He does come out with some bullshit and some misinformation, does Alex Jones. I do agree that a lot of the stuff that he says are true. I agree that, he's pushing all these controversial topics. I do think that, he is, on the side, of, the side that, Jimmy Dore affiliates with and these sort of people. But firstly, I don't trust Elon Musk's camp because they're going for this whole, Bluetooth, AI linked to human mind, which is just going to basically, if they do that, it's going to kill talking. If they do this thing they want to do, it's going to get rid of talking because no one will need to speak to each other. And people are going to end up like those characters on Dark City. The movie with O'Brien, used to do the Crystal Maze, but he did that dark movie film, and you got these strangers who just communicate with like clicking thoughts, and they keep changing things around everywhere without people realizing, and they wake up the next thing and everything's been changed. It's going to go down that path. And the thing with people like Elon Musk is it's just like boys with toys. They want to do things, but they're not really, they just want to do it for the gadgetry of it and for the geekiness of it and for the sake of doing it. because they want to do it. And a lot of these technologies, it's I don't think that they're in the position where they should have the lawful right to do all these things and push them on us and then just start pitching and selling them to us when it has that dramatic change on the human race. And that is why these big companies and corporations and organizations like BlackRock, Vanguard and all the other the subsidiary companies, I don't think that all the things that they're doing they shouldn't have the right to do it. All these things that Google and YouTube and all these platforms are doing now, even changing language and, changing terminology on a massive global scale, it's beyond what anybody through law and rights, everyone's meant to be able to, advocate things for government and politically. But these companies are, beyond governments, beyond politics and beyond leaders. They've amassed so much cannon of power that they are steering humans. And no person should be able to do that just through the power of money. It's meant to be the power of voting. It's meant to be the power of voting our opinion, not through financial capacity. Because a government isn't meant to be a company. A government isn't meant to be a business. It's meant to be a constitution where everyone contributes equally to it. And when you've got these big players like Bill Gates, they're not contributing equally to it. And then they're not doing what the people want or what is even best for the people, and their machines, their gadgets, their tools, and the fruits of their business. Firstly, we are getting a bad deal out of it, and they're making all the money, and they're getting they are forcing us to consent to what they want to do, even when it's not the law of the country. The main thing is the policies, the consenting to their policies when it's not even law. In a way, they've made their own cyber countries where, almost like the metaverse, where to enter that universe, you've got to consent to their laws and their rules, right? But their metaverse permits the whole world. And there's a lot of things they're doing illegal to do with political rights and things like that are actually breaking the rules of certain countries. And they have really invented their own world, their own kind of world of thought and their own world of engagement, which, and they're enforcing their own rules. But how do they make those rules apply? Well, they're getting you to consent to them. It's almost like if you go into another country, you consent to those rules in that country. You can go into one country, it's got some laws, and then you go into another country and it's got other laws, like the States of America. And when you actually are in England and you're communicating with other people in England, I don't see why other rules of some metaverse should override all the rules of your country. It's wrong. And this is why I think they've gone beyond themselves and they're out of control, And I've kind of got onto that subject from just basically this Jimmy Dore program started to talk about, DMT and ayahuasca and things like that. But, so Alex Jones, drawing back to this, what we started off with, Alex Jones. So Alex Jones, he spoke about some government experiments that the CIA, and FBI and all these government research departments in America have been doing. Now that's important, and that information that Alex Jones has imparted, it's all the type of thing that Dennis McKenna, and Alan Shoemaker and all these, people like Jonathan Ott and, Alan Watts, all those spiritualist people who have been studying these chemicals, sacraments of these different tribes and peoples. So what Alex Jones confirmed, which I do agree with and think was valuable, is that he confirmed that governments have been looking into it themselves, right? I mean, you've got to acknowledge that, when governments and when, the Ministry of Justice and when all these current departments of government use terms like chambers, All the barristers have got chambers here and chambers there. They are the lawmakers. They are the law experts. They are the law people, professional barristers with chambers and, so forth, in the chambers in Parliament. It definitely gestures towards and acknowledges, all of the ancient, temples and chambers, the inner temple and all this business that all the House of Lords members are affiliated with. So they're kind of giving a nod to all ancient religions, even though they don't really want to name or admit that there is an ancient religion. And therefore it's relevant when you're discussing governments and power. And the thing with the biggest thing in all of this, when you get onto these topics that Jimmy Dore's just raised in regards to Alex Jones, is that it's illegal. The biggest and main point out of the whole issue to do with all of the sacraments and all, the whole discussion around, all of these different dimensions and, dreaming and all the rest of it, is that for a start, all of those substances which would facilitate or engage with that area of exploration, with that area of investigation and with that topic and subject are illegal. They've made them all illegal. They've made, DMT, mushrooms, mescaline, all these drugs to possess them or to even grow plants that even produce them is illegal, which means they don't want you to look into it. Lawfully, they don't want you to look into it. Lawfully, they don't want people to obtain these things and trade or sell them. There is some... there's a bit of a joke around the Doctor Who TARDIS, whether it does represent some sort of blue flashing light on the top, whether it's some little mushroom growing somewhere on the moors and it's a public use, like, go pick your own or whatever, But apart from that, the fact is they've made those things illegal and they don't want you to engage with them. Now, they're allowed to experiment with them. They've got, King's College in London or whatever it is, that Carhart guy investigating it, and they've all got licenses. If you're a university or professor, you can get a license, you can be licensed to possess it and do experiments with it. But, it seems rather ridiculous that many of these plants and the sacraments that clearly are evident from, there are lots of statues and icons and objects from not only North America, but South America and Britain and, other countries that clearly indicate that these were religious sacraments, right? Yet the Christians really went out of their way to ban these and make them illegal during the Roman conquest. One of their objectives was to eradicate and wipe out that religion. They did a really good job of it. And the next thing, we've got windmills popping up everywhere, spinning round, which, they weren't making poppies illegal, were they? And the next thing, Jesus popping up on a cross with 2 nails in his hand. But yet, it's flowers and bread everywhere, I'd be happy, So, now we can ban poppies, where do they come from? It happens to be the region of the world that is in perpetual conflict and warfare, that Donald Trump, seems to be directing the American Air Force towards, this is it. But, so the fact that it's illegal, right? So really lawfully, unless you're a particular laboratory with a license, no one's even really supposed to have an opinion or supposed to know about it or even supposed to explore it or even know about it. You're not even meant to know about it. Now, in order to even read some of the, iconography, in order to read some of the engravings, in order to read, the symbols that are inside, some of these sites like Newgrange and Nof and Dof and some of the sites in Spain and even the north of Africa, you any of these images and icons that are associated with the items that were found, with all these plants like mescaline, peyote mushrooms, right? It would suggest that you really need to be, using them in order to understand them, right? Because, it goes to say, pretty obvious. And therefore, it's interesting that, Christianity did stamp out a religion that we don't even really have a name for now. And yet we've got all these discussion groups all over the internet, which are arguing vehemently about what these symbols mean. We can't seem to come to any definitive answer, any definitive conclusion, although it's obvious to understand what a circle means. When you draw a circle, it means a circle. It's obviously, there are some things that you can draw which are self-explanatory, like when you draw a triangle. What's that? It's a triangle. If you draw, one line, two line, three lines, what's that? 1, 2, 3 lines. There is certain shape and form informs you of itself without any particular necessity to divulge into any abstract intelligence or any particular meaning or interpretation other than what is evident, self-evident in its very form. There are basic forms which communicate the form which is communicated, and on that level of intelligence, sometimes it's not worth, there isn't really much of an argument over it, Now, when it comes to government, though, so the ironic thing is that if there is a religion and if there is anything to learn from those experiences, if there is anything to discover, and if there is anything valuable in them, in the religious experience, which is for certain admitted that it is in connection with those substances, then you would want to check it out, and be informed on it at first hand. And with the obstruction of the law and legislation, it makes it almost impossible. Yet apparently the FBI and the CIA can run all manner of experiments, so they know all about it, according to Alex Jones. Oh, they've done all of the experiments. They've done the remote viewing. They've done the sensory deprivation tanks. They've done the, it's like Jedi Master. Oh, look, it's Anakin Skywalker. What card am I holding up? Is it, what's the symbol on the card? Cup under the ball, which cups the ball under. What's the symbol I'm holding up on the back of my card? Shuffle a deck of cards. What's the symbol? Apparently the FBI and CIA are all over that. Apparently, but we're not allowed to engage in it. It's illegal, a criminal offence. Well, that's interesting because under United Nations religious site law, it's illegal to attack an ancient site or damage an ancient site. What about an ancient site that a person's got an ancient seeing capacity in sight, an ancient perceptual sight, an ancient visibility, an ancient, perception? Is it illegal to damage or obstruct a person's sight? A person's vision? What if the sacrament itself is an ancient site? What if the place where the sacrament grows is an ancient religious site? What happens, if to the people of, in the Middle East, what happens if the poppy field's the ancient site itself? What happens, if the mushroom, the dung is the ancient site itself, the original site of the sacrament? What the peyote cactus, the desert, is the ancient religious site? How can you make that illegal? Because you would be obstructing the religious practice. So a lot of these governments are breaking the law because really they don't have the vision, they don't have the sight, they don't have the understanding and capacity required of what even they're doing, and they live in perpetual contradiction. You know, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has just done a video saying that the Secretary of State in America doesn't even understand half the law or legislation. They don't have the capacity for the law and legislation, just like the Petitions Committee in Parliament. I asked them what legislation are they operating on. They said none. You know, well, you must be people who engage with petitioning the government just using the 1688 Bill of Rights. But they said no. Well, that's a lie. And then they said, oh, we're operating on Standing Orders 145A. Well, what about your website? How are you even publishing the petitions and asking people to share them online? Well, that uses, the Town and Country Planning Act, publishing of advertisements, whether it's digital, online, or physical printed ones. Town and Country Planning Act 2007. Do you even know what your website's doing? What law is the petitions website even operating on? Is Class F digitally published material? They don't know. Because they don't actually care and they're being misguided. And this is exactly basically what, in that Lawrence Fox interview with that head school teacher said that the standard of school teachers has fallen. The intellectual capacity of school teachers has fallen so low now that when you're in the staff room at school, they don't want to engage in critical thinking. They don't want to engage in critical thought. They just want to, talk about X Factor or light discussion that's not engaging. I think a lot of this is because of the internet and the use of the blocking and banning. It maybe if you put in a subject that they don't want to get into a critical thinking about, or they don't really want to really get into it and discuss it and debate it and be proved wrong, or they don't understand it, they just don't want to bother with you anymore. They don't want to lose the argument, and it's like in Parliament, in parliamentary debates, no question really gets answered. Rishi Sunak will, someone will put a question to him and he'll just make some evasive backlash point back, like a tennis game, to evade the direct answer. And, just very... he'll say, we're doing lots about this and we're doing lots about that and we're engaged in this and that, but he won't actually get into anything. He basically will buff it. He'll just buff it off on some superficial, oh, well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Yeah, you are talking. That's why you're in parliamentary. We're having a broadcast debate to talk about it. That's why we elected you. Yeah, we've got to look at it. It's David Cameron. Oh, we've got to look at it. We'll take a look at it. Well, we'll have a look at it. We'll have a look at it. No, David. Yes, you will take a look at it. Now you're in the chamber with the television, with all the MPs present, and I put the question to you. That's what we are looking at it now. So what is the answer? Yes or no? Is it unlawful or not? Not, I'll take a look at it. No, take a look at it. I'm asking you now. What's the answer? I don't know. Well, why don't we get someone elected who does know? Well, let me look at my notes. I'll read off a bit of paper. I've got this, I've got these 5 pages of A4 to read out that I must have revised before the debate. You revised it all. Why don't we have MPs? This is the thing. Elon Musk wants to create, maybe David Cameron or, Rishi Sunak will be able to plug his brain into Elon Musk's mega computer in another 5 years, or Bluetooth it, and then Rishi Sunak then won't need to look at his notes because he can just read it off. He'll have all of legislation.com at his intellectual disposal in, 515 gigabytes per microsecond, and then he can just reel it all off. Well, it's, the Representation of the People Act, Section 5, So, these people should know. They should be revised on the matters, and they should be able to answer questions, not just rebuff them off all the time. That actually makes me wonder what's happened to the memory of the human being, to the intellectual capacity, and then bringing it back to these sacraments. So, I did say Alex Jones has, talked about some important and relevant things, like, those government experiments. But when it comes to when you get into that, it's very, very, very. When a lot of people haven't had those experiences and don't understand it, that is when you get a lot of disagreement about it and a lot of confusion. If people had been engaged with it, then they would know a lot more about it, and then you could discuss it, and then people could come to more well-informed conclusions about it. Now, the main thing with the sacraments, I think, is that really they have got a lot to do with the emergence of the imagination, with the actual creation of the imagination, because those sacraments actually invent the play of the internal dialogue, and they facilitate the human being, the human condition, being able to engage with language and interpretation and internal dialogue, internal insights, internal revelations, cognition. It's all about the workings of it's all about the exercising and the play and even heightening and deep engagement with thought itself, and how we interpret symbols, how language forms, how language emerges, how shape and form emerge, and all of those things. So they've got a lot to do with the evolution and creation of the human condition, as opposed to non-human, like we're looking at primates and animals. We know all animals dream, but we are distinctly different from animals. There's no doubt about that. And we know that, South America was, South America is, a long, long way from here. And, the whole of the Americas are separated by large amounts of water. Yet they prominently have got these people who were using these sacraments. And those are the people who would actually engage with the medicines and with the spiritual aspects of all the people. And that is effectively, what the ancient religious orders were over here as well, which is, the whole origins and emergence of the church, no matter which affiliation it is or which section or order it is. So, it must go back a very, very, very long time, to say that it's most definite that all of the peoples all around the whole planet have got this connection with these religious sacraments. Even, the Eskimos of the North Pole, with Amanita Muscaria, they've all got these sacraments that all engage with the dreaming and with the, visions, even if they're all slightly different in their mechanism. So it has got to be important. Now, when that is connected to the emergence of Homo sapiens and humans as being distinctively different from animals, how can you make it illegal? How can you make something actually unlawful and illegal when the evidence is that all types of humans all around the whole planet have, for millennia, been engaged with their own respective sacraments, no matter how slightly different they are, and try and claim that that hasn't got something to do with the emergence of the human imagination and thinking? And then how can you make that illegal and then start, trying to tell, people are arguing about it in groups, what it mean, what do all their writings and their icons and their, temples stand for and mean? when the government are knocking around, their chambers, our chambers are in a temple. Who do they think they are? Apparently we're not legally entitled. Now, the thing with Alex Jones, though, is when he gets into all this, like, multi-dimension arguments, in my opinion, I don't really believe there is such thing as any, particular, he's how many dimensions are there? I don't really think that is a plausible question, to try and claim or set out there is a specific number of anything like these dimensions or anything like that. This is where I think that Alex Jones starts to talk bullshit and starts getting into bullshit, There's no doubt that, the things like ayahuasca and, mushrooms and things like that are exceptionally valuable and important, right? But when you start getting into these, counting dimensions and numbers and start saying this or that, particularly when Alex Jones comes out about this demon bullshit, with demons appearing and all this shit, there are some questionable things what Alex Jones comes out with. But then again, he says some things that are factual. It's a little bit in a way like, when you get onto, I'm just trying to remember David Icke, David Icke, in a way, Alex Jones is extremely similar to David Icke. And if you think about it, it's strange that Alex Jones is getting all this attention now and publicity, because David Icke, is unless you follow him really closely, you don't really hear much about David Icke anymore. I haven't heard Russell Brand mention him or anyone else, and David Icke seems to me pretty similar to Alex Jones in a way. So, when it comes to what is the point and what is the question, at the end of this, when it comes to Alex Jones, when he talks about those things? Well, the main point is that while the governments are making it illegal, I don't even know if they can make it illegal, because firstly, if you've got a United Nations, clause which says that, attacking or damaging ancient site is illegal, yet our human vision and insight came from the evolutionary use of sacraments. So to obstruct and make illegal a sacrament which has contributed towards the emergence of thought and idea, that is attacking an ancient site, because, what about, never mind a temple or a shrine or a representation, what about the actual site where the sacrament grows? Because, a temple is only a place where you take it to engage with. What about the actual, bit of desert where the peyote grows? It's really that the sacrament is the first religious site of, the religious sacrament is the first religious site. So, if you're attacking it with the law, you're using the law to make it illegal to have the ancient sacrament in your hands and to possess it, unless you just get like a second-rate representation of it, or even take it to possess it or have it, and let alone to enter the visionary area of that site, And there was another point that I wanted to make, with the CIA and the whole, FBI and so forth, So, there. So I'm certain that, the thing. So, all this, when Alex Jones is talking about different dimensions and so forth, I will note this, right? So, the imagination is really I don't know if you were to call it another dimension, but the imagination is almost like, it is in a way similar to a computer, because it exists in your mind, like something exists in a computer, but not in physical form. until you actually make it or convey it to someone else. So the television, the actual television, right, and the fact that everyone has got a television, or nearly everyone has got a television in their front room, or a smartphone in their possession. So in a way, really, when Alex Jones is saying that, there's all these different dimensions, but he's suggesting that there are a certain number of dimensions or whatever. So I do believe that some of that is kind of bullshit and a load of bollocks, but I will concur and agree with the fact that with that model, though, you see, when Alex Jones is talking about different dimensions, you might as well be talking about different television stations or different radio stations. It is, Atlantic Radio a dimension. It's kind of like he's sort of arguing and debating around there, really. There are infinite number of radio stations you can have because you can tune into you can broadcast on different wavelengths, right? So when he sets out that there are 5 more dimensions, you fucking count them all, do you know more by name? That is bullshit. I can concur. And, Alex Jones is talking absolute bollocks, and so is David Icke. If he wants to challenge me on that, I'll tell him he's talking bullshit. I've never heard as much bullshit in my entire life, But there, in a way, what the government and what these controlling forces, the corporate forces, and a lot of people like Bill Gates and people, philanthropists, who kind of know enough about this, and they know a lot about it because, like we said, we've got the government studying all these things. We've got the government doing loads of experiments on it, right? They know enough about it, and they know quite a lot about it, more than everyone else, because, by the way, we're not allowed to look into it because it's illegal, it's unlawful. We're criminals. If we look into it, we're criminals. It wouldn't be fun. It would be funny, wouldn't it? It would be interesting if it was criminal to possess $1 trillion. It would be criminal if it was interesting if it was criminal to possess $1 billion. It would be interesting if it would be criminal to rip people off and fleece them and make a profit out of someone by giving false information and putting someone else at a loss, which in law is theft. When really a good lawyer who was worth his money could argue that Bill Gates is a thief. That all these people are thieves because they've perverted, and cohorted us into agreeing and consenting to their flimsy policies, which aren't the law of the country, and they're misleading us to give up our rights, which are illegal to take away on their platforms, which is perverting the course of. That's treason, This is it. So, but these governments and elites, they know more about it than the average person, enough to know that. So all their television programs, all their advertisements, all their broadcasting, all their radio shows are transmissions, they're signals, they are broadcasts, they are dreams in a way that are being projected onto us all that they want us to go along with. Jeremy Vine with his breakfast show, Philip Schofield with his gleaming white suit, his gleaming white backdrops and his, whatever. These are all the dreams of other people that are being strategically manufactured, psychologically designed and planned by very overpaid and very clever people with far too much money and gross excess of funds at their disposal and achieved mainstream channels. And these broadcasts are affecting and influencing people all around the world, people's families, The family should be focused on the family. The family should be focused on the family and the community and the friends, but they're not. They're focused on the celebrity. They celebrate the deity now, the celebrity, and then the celebrity gets them to give money to charity, but don't give money to people in your area who need money, who need charitable donations. Give it to us, we'll deal with it all. Send it to Philip Schofield, send it to the National Lottery, we know best. And this is the problem, that they seem to know best. And then they end up taking control of all the money. They taking over control of all the funds. And, why don't you buy this? Why don't you buy that? Why don't you dress like this? Why don't you dress like that? This is the status quo. Now, this is when you get the government issue a statement, like the British military issued a statement from the government. They said, this is the way we do things. This is the way we do it. This is the way that we do it, and this is the way that we run the world. And you'll have to like it or lump it, or you're going to be at war with us, and it's a war you're going to lose. Because we have all the big guns, we have all the fancy weapons, we have the cannon. They have control of the cannon, and with the religious canon, which is now basically the religious canon of consumerism, the Archbishop of Canterbury is a complete and total failure. The Pope Francis really is a failure to the entire religion. These people have sold out their souls. Everything that they claim to represent, opposing sins and so forth, they've gone. They've gone. And everyone has given in to this excess in greed, materialism, consumerism. And, they're knocking out all these products. Now, the thing with all of the material things, all of the objects, which they are manifesting through their own ideas, right? So they're all their creations, all their ideas, all their things that they dreamt up, that they thought of and imagined, and they've got the money to get them made, and then they sell them to us and put them on TV, and then they use the whole influence circle to get you to buy them and do stuff. This is the control mechanism, and now they understand the psychology of it and the powers of it very, very well. And regardless of whether they've got it separated into different divisions of study, they've got university, they've got psychology department, they've got technology department, they've got, biochemistry and physics, and then they've got King's College London looking at the psilocybin and all the rest of it. It's how it all fits together and how it all operates together, right, which is the subject. Now, the problem with the religious sacraments, right, the problem with these religious sacraments, or the majority of them, and they're all very, very similar in their operating mechanisms, is that those sacraments really get you interested in the operating mechanisms and the underlying principles of how all these things work. Interpersonal communication, all of the underlying psychology, the effects of it, the influences of it, really all the things that you're doing wrong to your body that's making it ill or making you unwell, all of the influences, all of that, they really get you in a state of critical thinking and reflection where you can understand all these things and even, recalibrate your system or kind of like make all of the kind of superficial things that have got you distracted in life, like the latest toy or the latest gadget or the latest thing, they make them very, very unimportant, and it really gets you back to, what is important in life as a living creature, and it is a form of self-education. And the problem with that is that, firstly, these sacraments are working with you as a individual human being, as a individual unit, as a human being, as a creature. And even if you're sat in a cave or sat in your bedroom or, sat staring at a rock face, or even if you're having an out-of-body experience, the thing is that it's not Philip Schofield who is telling you, what's what. It's not Jeremy Vine who is telling you what's what. It's not Pope Francis who is telling you what's what. It's not the Archbishop of Canterbury or King Charles who is giving you the ultimatum on this is this or that is that. It actually is your actual body and your actual own ancestors' genetics and stored information and your own opinion, your own judgment combined with that and hundreds of thousands or millions of years of human evolution, which, really, your ancestors have got to amount to something or you wouldn't even be here still, you got to give them some credit. And the problem with the government is that when individuals and people are making these evaluations and so forth, it is them who are coming up with their own ideas, and it is them who are giving their ideas critical thinking. Even if they come up with bad ideas or wrong ideas, they can still have a philosophical discussion with someone else about it or students and debate it afterwards, right? It's not a television set broadcasting one message to everyone, the King's Speech, this is this and that is that. And it's not even an elected government with laws now. It's a company, YouTube, Neil Mohan, consent, submit, accept. The stone tablets from YouTube, consent to the 10 Commandments of Neil Mohan, submit, consent, accept, yield to the consent of your, this is it. And this is the problem with television and radio. And this is why we've entered this kind of global situation. Really, it's YouTube that has opened it all up in a way, and independent websites. I mean, people have had websites since, before the year 2000, before 2001, well before then, and forums. But I would say that the discussion and conversation on those groups and forums really hasn't really come to full fruition of what that means politically when it comes to people deciding, what the laws should and shouldn't be and, what is right should and shouldn't be. Now it seems to be coming to a crescendo. And, the fact that, why isn't television illegal? Why, what is the most insane thing about it all is that, the government don't want you to be riding off the edge of a reservoir like Arnold Schwarzenegger and a Harley Davidson or a Yamaha, right? Chasing after some HGV, BlackRock Vanguard, Elon Musk, Optimus robot to save the world, because that's dangerous. Rishi Sunak doesn't want anyone in London to save us from the corporate entities who have hijacked the top of the tower block like in Die Hard. They've hijacked the government, BlackRock and Vanguard, they've hijacked his rights. No, Rishi's like, no, don't take the law into your own hands. Because that's criminal, that's illegal, right? don't take down the TV station or the radio tower, don't cut off the corporate greed, don't save the human race from the materialistic broadcasting. No, but we can go to the cinema and pay £6 and stuff your face with hot dogs and pick and mix sweets, all to the profit of Rishi Sunak's investor corporation that he's likely got shares in, or Rees-Mogg or whoever. No, we can go to the cinema and we can all watch the pretend hero do it for us. We can watch the pretend hero live out that paradigm, live out that dream in fantasy world, right? Therefore, all the dreaming and all the revelations and all the subjects that we might, assess in our own individual religious, zone in our own time. Oh, no, don't start getting your own ideas, this is it, there's something in that. Now, what I want to say to Rishi Sunak is, why aren't those films legal? Oh, well, little children can't watch it. It's a bit too dangerous for them. A bit of rumpy-pumpy, bit of sex or whatever. But no, grown-ups can, don't worry. If anyone who had ever been stuffed in the face with pick and mix and hot dogs would be in fit condition to do anything that Arnold Schwarzenegger has pulled off in any Terminator film would be a feat in its own right, if they were fit enough to do that after partaking in that diet. So it really, the yoke's on us. The joke is on us. And what's happening is that this almighty, all-powerful invention, this vision machine, this television which has emerged from the radio, which they, from the start, had controlling and had a monopoly on, really, it's similar to the religious services, when you go to church, and have a sermon and a service. It's all religious. But the new religion is consumerism, And the problem is now that the television has been smashed and fragmented into 1,000 pieces. I mean, there are so many YouTube channels now that I can't even watch them all. I can't even watch the channels that I need to keep up with, or even follow all the Facebook groups. And when there are too many things distracting you, so you can't focus on something properly, then you're lost, because you can't even follow with a coherence, right, what's happening. And that is why they desperately need to get AI. They desperately need to get AI to be watching everyone and recording everything that everyone says and recording everything that everyone's doing better than the person themselves can record or remember, because no one can even really follow any of these groups now. But it just goes to show how much influence and how much attention they had through the major channels. Less so in America, because they've had cable television for a long time besides Sky. But in England, it's more of a recent invention, all through the 50s and 60s and so forth, and wider afield. We've all had been focused on these primary channels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's the problem now. And I think that with those sacraments, you do need to be careful with them. And I think that my opinion is that it was everyone, the majority of the people were initiated with it, and it was something that everyone did, to understand, really to understand who we are and where we come from. Now, some people might say that was a way of controlling people. They had them on the drugs, and they were controlling people. That is exemplary with the South American shamans. You know, they could be, you know, tricking people and duping them and misleading them with certain plants. But it's very, very. I think that the model for the emergence of the human condition, I think there's a stronger case for the fact that they are responsible for the emergence of our imagination rather than the fact that, you know, we emerged without them and then they just happen to be something that one particular religious figure was manipulating people with. You know, I mean, look at poppies, for example. They just grow, and then people start taking them, you know, and start eating them. And then if they can't stop, I mean, was that a one person responsible for it, or was it just nature? Was it God? Whether or not it's good or bad for you is debatable. But if you use that model for the other sacraments, then it's really, you know, down to God and nature, really, at the end of the day. And the thing with, you know, the thing with, you know, the ayahuasca and the mushrooms and things like that is, I think more than anything, I don't think that it's something that you necessarily say is stupid or wacky or crazy. It's only stupid or wacky or crazy if it's kind of misused or abused, and, you know, you get giggly teenagers who are sort of like just using it for a laugh, or, you know, they call them recreational drugs, but really these are very, very serious tools, and I think evolutionary tools. And it's more than anything, it's to do with this, what they call set and setting, and the type of people that you are with. It's almost like the fact that, you know, if you go out with a load of delinquents, then you're going to get into trouble. But if you go out with some intellectual people and you end up, you know, in a room together, you end up having a very, very philosophical, fruitful conversation, which is beneficial to everyone taking part in it, right? You know, and it's to do with the right setting and so forth. And you know, not to be, you know, abused, or if you haven't got anyone there to ask questions to or whatever. But the fact that our government has already failed, really, with, you know, crime, you would think that with all this technology that they've got, crime would have been completely eradicated. But in England, for instance, crime is getting worse and worse. So they can't be doing anything right, you know, and no Prime Minister really can really hold their head up high and be proud of the country. I mean, all they seem to be proud of is the fact of their profits. They're boasting about stocks and shares, they're boasting about profits, they're boasting about business, yet the crime is getting worse. You know, so they haven't really succeeded, except all they succeed in is numbers. They're very, very successful at being selfish and making themselves more money and more profits. And we know where that's led to. It's led to all of the money actually being in the possession of them. A very small number of people who are successful at doing that. If they would have been as successful with crime, but without needing to make laws to make everyone the more and more laws you make to criminalise more and more things, the more and more criminals you're going to have. You actually want people to choose to not break the law, or choose, you know, if they would have been as successful in, you know, crime or in, you know, equality and so forth as they were at making themselves money, then that would be something to be proud of. But because their primary and main objective is to make themselves rich, everyone else has had to suffer for it. Everyone's had to suffer. And how they've made that money is by making too much of things and not getting things to the right places where they need to be, you know? So the government are a huge failure. They're a massive failure, you know? And to be honest, I think that the thing with those sacraments is some primary themes when it comes to the sacraments, like the peyote and ayahuasca and the mushrooms, are things like sharing, love, health, equality, and a balance, a natural balance. And those, even though, the church is a contradiction in a way, it pretends to have, these themes that sin is bad. And that is one of the main themes that comes across with these sacraments, And it always has been a religious theme, a strong religious theme through a lot of the religions, is this kind of like, charity and equality and natural order, even though that people don't seem to follow it so much, particularly when you get to greed and excess, And I think I don't think the main reason why those sacraments are illegal is because they make people nuts or crazy. I believe that the real reason that they're illegal is that they promote critique of greed and excess. They do promote love. I mean, look at who are the main people who advocate these things are usually hippies and New Age people, Burning Man, Stonehenge, hippies. These people, what message does that sector push? Usually love. Look at Paul McCartney and sharing. And you cannot have a corporate entity that's main motto is consent, submit, conform, accept, and his primary goal is to accumulate as largest amount of profit and money that is possible, to hoard and make the massivest amount of profit possible out of everyone. You can't even set off on that direction if you are under the influence of the sacraments, because it is not within the remit of them. It is more towards the remit of the claimed supposed values of even the Christian religion, which is, sin is bad. So that is one of the main reasons why they're made illegal. I would say that that's probably why the Roman army, because the Roman army and the whole Roman Empire was, all for, taxing materials, pushing their products and so forth. And, I would say that was a corporate move. The Roman army was a corporate maneuver of a kind. And, I think that was probably one of the major... And they always seem to criticize everything, we used to do sacrifices and all these bad things, which I think is propaganda, I think it was in the nature of the British people really to be agreeable and negotiable, which is why there wasn't as much resistance as other places, like in Germany where the Roman army didn't get in and conquer. There was some sort of, because of our altruistic nature here and our agreeability, unfortunately that was, what ended up being... why we didn't manage to resist it. It's laughable why these things are illegal. When the CIA and so forth are studying them, when it happens to be the thing that actually is behind a major part of the emergence of the imagination and the human mind, So that's what I'd say to Alex Jones, and I've had to do it in 3 videos, but, I don't agree with him on the dimensions thing. I don't think you can say, there are 5 dimensions or there are 6 dimensions or whatever, because that's like saying how many radio stations are there or how many TV channels are there, how many ideas can you have, it's it's irrelevant. I don't think that it's irrelevant. So that's the main thing that annoys me with David Icke and Alex Jones when he starts talking about stuff like that. But saying that, he just come out with some really important things that are legitimate that I didn't know about, and a lot of the other things that he talks about I think is really relevant at the moment and important. So I think it's important to call people out though on things. So yeah, I mean, I think it's illegal to make them illegal. It has to be. If a religious site, if it's illegal to attack, right, and or harm a religious site. But what is a religious site? Well, it's the place of worship of religion. But what is worshipping a religion? So if using a sacrament is worshipping a religion, then how can you access the site if you first can't possess the sacrament and secondly can't use it? So this is the broken logic. But, they've been breaking a lot of laws. I mean, they've been changing laws and pulling acts and stuff incoherently and unlawfully, incompatible things they've been doing with the legislation, which now I'm starting to call them out on, pulling certain clauses which they can't pull, and making certain laws which they can't make at the moment. Because they don't really... The thing with MPs is, they don't actually have to be qualified. And, which means that they don't actually have to know what they're talking about to be elected and to be in government. The entire legislation of the country is kind of like stacked like the Leaning Tower of Pizza. It's stacked... it's not straight or necessarily correct,